is a black pastor by the name of Jamal Bryant that made a comment that the black church, and I guess he's talking about the black church in America, is 80% women. And he was talking about how men just aren't showing up in the church. Now, he said it's because the way the church is not really reaching the black men's needs, da, 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 da. He even made a comment that in Islam, the church is attended by 80% black men. And I'm just like, I feel like he's intentionally leaving out a really, really important factor here. Black men ain't fucking with the church. Black men ain't fucking with the church. I used to go to church and I used to see how the pastors would always play on our emotions as women. And I say our emotions as women because before I became emotionally logical, I was operating totally in emotion. And so you had all these women would be in church, running their hand, crying and weeping, and their men would be sitting there looking at them like, is she serious? Like, it's not that serious. Like, oh my God, she's like literally crying and da-da-da. Men aren't, you're not manipulating them emotionally. And that's what they're doing in the church. So men today are not going to church because they see the manipulation. And I have 3 older brothers. One took his whole family out of church, and it wasn't even a black church. I have my other 2 brothers, they're just not going. You're not doing it. It's a manipulation.
Shalom. Welcome to another video. And as always, before I get started, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Heavenly Father and His only begotten Son, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Chodash, and next double honors to the head apostles / elder bishops of the Great Millstone who teach and who rule well. Peace, blessings, and safety to all you sincere Akim. Keep pushing, keep believing, and keep the faith, regardless of whether people hear or whether they forbear. So this is going to be a reaction to the clip that I put in the introduction of this video, right, where the woman said that the so-called black church is pretty much 80% all women, okay? And I'm going to touch on the reasons why that is, okay? So that's the topic we're going to dive into, and Yahweh Rakshazah, meaning Heavenly Father's will, is edifying to the elect. All right, so first, I'm going to start off in Daniel chapter 12, I'm going to read verses 1 through 4. It says, "And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which stand for the children of thy people. And there shall be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, everyone that shall be found written in the book." All right, and here's the point. In verse 2 it says, "And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt." So the time that was spoken of in the first verse, all right, is going into the Great Tribulation. All right, now before the Great Tribulation comes, just like the Lord has always done before He sends any kind of calamity upon the people of the earth, He always sent out prophets and messengers, all right, to give warning. Okay, so we're in a time right now where people are waking up. All right, the Lord is pouring His Spirit out upon Jake, and that's the reason why they're leaving these harlot houses, okay, these so-called churches, okay, because they're waking up out of that dust. The dust represents the confusion, all right, the confusion of their low estate, of their captivity. All right, they're waking out of that, and they're recognizing it for what it really is, okay. The so-called black church is nothing but theatrics, all right, as she said in the video, okay. It's all just emotional manipulation. They don't really teach you anything, okay. And once you have the Spirit of the Lord, it comes over you. All right, you are going to seek out the wisdom of the scriptures, and you're going to realize that it's pretty much 110% lies, okay. Let me get this precept right quick. Actually, as a matter of fact, let me continue on. Daniel 12:3, it says, "And they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased." Okay, so the knowledge of the Bible was sealed until the time of the end, until right before this Great Tribulation comes, and that's what's happening once again. All right, the confusion, the covering cast of confusion is being destroyed. All right, knowledge is increasing, and the books have been opened. Okay, so of course that's making people realize, all right, that what they've been a part of is false. Because if the book was sealed until the time of the end, but then you've been teaching the same, tired plantation Christian doctrine that's been going out, since the Roman Catholic started their church in 325 A.D. Okay, what we know of today is modern day Christianity and Roman Catholicism. All right, under Emperor Constantine. Okay, the Council of Nicaea. That's where you get the tenets of the Trinity and all these different Christian doctrines. Well, it tells you the book was sealed to the time of the end. So whatever you were teaching, couldn't possibly be the truth. But in the last days, the Lord would open the book and He would reveal the truth to His elect. So what are they going to do? They're gonna come out of these different false religions of the world. All right, and that doesn't mean that everybody who comes out of the Christian churches of the elect, obviously not. But okay, it starts with the men. The Lord teaches the men first, and then the men being a spiritual leader, a household, He teaches the women and children the rest. Okay, that's the reason why the men are leaving first, because they're waking up to the BS. They're waking up to how it's nothing but smoke and mirrors. All right, and they're also waking up to the scriptures. Okay, which is the precept I was going to get, Isaiah 29 and verse 19. Salakia. I don't know, spelling error. Isaiah 29 and 19, it says, "The meek also shall increase their joy in the Lord, and the poor among men shall rejoice in the Holy One of Israel." Okay, so once again, you get a taste of that spirit, you get a taste of the truth. All right, then it makes it to where you hate lies. Okay, all right, let's get a precept on that. Psalms chapter 119 and verse 104. All right, it says, "Through thy precepts I get understanding, therefore I hate every false way." Okay, so once again, all right, if the book has been sealed to the time of the end, and that false gospel they've been teaching for over 1,000 years, that couldn't possibly be the truth. Okay, if it was sealed to the time of the end, and once again, remember that the scriptures, the mysteries are really only given to the children of Israel, but we were in slavery, in captivity under our enemies, and they were the ones who taught us plantation Christianity. So how could that be the truth? Okay, how could people who the Lord rejects teach us the truth about our God? Okay, and see, that's, once again, men are waking up to this and realizing that it's all BS, because they don't really teach you nothing in there. All right, the average Christian can't even tell you what sin is according to the Bible. Okay, they don't have really any knowledge of the scriptures. Another thing too is, once you actually dive deep into the scriptures, all right, you're gonna realize that there's no way that prophecy can be true and Christianity can be true. Okay, it's one or the other. And a lot of people that are still so-called black Christians, all right, they don't understand prophecy. Okay, they're pretty much, people who they skip straight to the New Testament. They don't read anything of the foundation of the old. They don't read the history. So they're completely ignorant of these things. And once you actually start to seek out that knowledge, okay, you're going to get understanding, and you're going to hate the lies. The more that you understand the truth, the more that you hate the lie. All right, let's get Proverbs chapter 2. I'm going to read verses 1 through 9. It says, "My son, if thou wilt receive my words and hide my commandments with thee, so that thou incline thine ear unto wisdom, and apply thine heart to understanding. Yea, if thou criest after knowledge, and liftest up thy voice for understanding, if thou seekest her as silver, and searchest for her as for hid treasures, then shalt thou understand the fear of the Lord, and find the knowledge of the Most High." Okay, so you have to seek after it. And Christians, they're not seeking after the knowledge of the Lord, man. Okay, and all they know is Jesus wept. Okay, Jesus died for everybody, and that's it. Okay, if you start trying to go into prophecy and talk about the finer details of the scriptures, a Christian will tell you that stuff doesn't matter. Why can't we talk about Jesus? That's what they're going to say. I know that because multiple Christians have said that. That Christian pastor, he said, you guys just read John 3:16. All right, that's pretty much their mindset. John 3:16 closed the book. All right, no understanding of the deeper fine points of the knowledge. But once again, you have to seek after it, and then you'll find the knowledge of the Most High. All right, and once again, the more you understand the truth, the more you're going to hate lies. It says, "For the Lord giveth wisdom, out of his mouth cometh, the Lord giveth wisdom, and out of his mouth cometh knowledge and understanding. He layeth up sound wisdom for the righteous, he is a buckler to them that walk uprightly. He keepeth the paths of judgment, and preserveth the way of his saints. Then shalt thou understand righteousness and judgment and equity, yea, every good path." Okay, so you got to seek after it. All right, and that's nothing too. The scriptures tell you the men of the Lord ain't going to be in no church buildings. They're going to be on the highways and byways. That's where the voice of wisdom goes forth. Okay, so once again, Jake is just waking up to realizing that it's all farce. It's all BS, okay? And really it's the Spirit of the Lord doing it. He's pulling them out, all right, from these false religions. All right, Isaiah 25:7. Okay, it says, and he will destroy in this mountain, in this government, Mount Seir, he will destroy in this mountain the face of the covering cast over all people, and the veil that is spread over all nations. Okay, there you go, and that's what's happening right now. All right, that veil is being destroyed. Okay, and let's get a precept on that out of 2 Corinthians, 3rd chapter. All right, now this chapter is going into how the wicked of the scribes and Pharisees, okay, were not able to understand prophecy, so that kept them blinded from the revealing of the justification through faith. All right, but it's the same thing today with Christians. The same spirit that blinded them is the same spirit that blinds so-called Christians today to where they can't understand prophecy. Okay, but when the Spirit of the Lord comes on you, it frees you from that. This is 2 Corinthians 3:14. It says, but their minds were blinded, for until this day remaineth the same veil untaken away in the reading of the Old Testament, which veil is done away in Yahushua. In the Old Testament, that's where the prophecies are. Okay, that's the reason why they skip over it, because that's something too. If you, like I said, if you dive too deep into the prophecies, you're gonna realize that Christianity is a farce. All right, and once again, once you understand the truth, you hate the lie. It says, verse 15, but even to this day, when Moses is read, the veil is upon their heart. Nevertheless, when it shall turn to the Lord, the veil shall be taken away. Now the Lord is that Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Okay, so as the scriptures say, John 8:32, and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. The Spirit of the Lord is what's going to guide you into all truth. All right, and it's going to set you free from the lies and dogma, all right, the nonsense that you've been learning, all right, in these plantation Christian churches your whole life. Okay, because that's all it is. It's nonsense. They don't teach you anything. All right, and men are seeking out the wisdom. Okay, they want the knowledge. All right, and ultimately that's what's going to establish you. Let's go ahead and get this last one. Romans chapter 16, and I'm going to read verse 25 on down. It says, now to him that is of power to establish you according to my gospel, and the preaching of Yahushua HaMashiach, according to the revelation of the mystery, which was kept secret since the world began, right? Because once again, we started off with Daniel the 12th chapter, that sealed the book unto the time of the end, right? It says, but now is made manifest, and by the scriptures of the prophets, according to the commandment of the everlasting God, made known to all nations for the obedience of faith. Okay, so that it's being revealed, that understanding of the prophecies. Okay, and that's really the testimony of Yahushua. That's the true Spirit of the Lord. Okay, is them prophecies, man. So, without that, it's nothing but emptiness. And people, that covering cast is being lifted. People are starting to wake up to the fact that it's all pretty much, as the woman said, emotional manipulation. It's all vanity. All right, so that's the reason why the so-called black church is 80% women, because just like Eve was beguiled by the serpent back then, she's still beguiled by the serpent now. Because Christianity, that is Esau's religion. All right, that's his false religion. It's very only loosely, very, very loosely based on the Bible. When I say loosely, I mean I'm talking Christianity is like 99% lies, and maybe the only truth that they'll say with Christianity is love your neighbor as yourself. All right, that's it. That's the only truth that you're gonna hear out of them, and they don't even really know what that means, because that don't mean love everybody on the planet. All right, he's really talking about your fellow Israelites, specifically those that are brothers and sisters in the truth. But anyways, that's it. So that's the reason why the church is 80% women. Okay, and it's not just black churches; it's all churches this is happening to. So what do you see now? You see Christians trying to combat it, all right, by actually trying to go into deeper topics. But they got to be careful, because if they go too deep, then they're going to disprove their own doctrine. Okay, so they just lightly teeter around it, and then the main part they focus their ministry on is combating Hebrew Israelites, or what they think is combating us. And all they're doing is making the ministry bigger, because when people that are actually studious, they start to scrutinize, all right, between the two, they're going to come to the realization that, once again, Christianity is pretty much all lies. That's the reason why you also see them starting to speak like us. I try to go out there on the highways and byways like us, starting to grow their beards like us. Okay? They're starting to go into the Hebrew and the Greek like us. Okay, because deep down inside, they know that we got the truth, but a lot of them are paid off, and a lot of them are offended at the harsher points of the scriptures, so they want to come and try to take some of the oil, want to try to take some of the doctrine and put their own Christian twist on it. It's just not going to work. All right, but anyways, that's the reason why. Once again, 80% of the so-called black church is all women. All right, Yahweh Righteous was edifying. As always, all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachwadash. And until next time, Shalom, and abide with Baal.